This is episode 32 of the Life in Norway Show. Trondheim recently saw the reopening of the historic Britannia Hotel at the heart of the city. It's one of a number of top-tier hotels to open in the country recently, in what seems to be a trend towards luxury tourism. When I was invited for lunch and a look around by a former guest of the Life in Norway show, I got to see it for myself. It's an impressive place, the likes of which we've not had in Trondheim before. Over lunch, we chat about what the Britannia is trying to be, both for international travellers and locals here in Trondheim, and about the possibilities for luxury travel here in central Norway. You can find out more information on today's show on the show notes page. Simply head on over to lifeinnorway.net/podcast and look for episode 32. Happy listening. Today I've decided to take the Life in Norway show on the road, and it wasn't a long trip, just a 5-minute walk from my office down the road in central Trondheim to the Britannia Hotel, where I'm joined by Will Lee Wright, who is a storyteller here at the Britannia. Now, Will is actually a repeat guest, the first time I've had a guest back on the show. So, Will, welcome back.
Well, hey, hi. What an honour to be the first guest invited back.
Absolutely. Now, Will, first question. What is a storyteller in relation to a hotel?
Wow, it could be many things. I mean, firstly, welcome here to Britannia. Storytelling is all about enriching the experience, and that can be done in many ways. You do it through the way that you greet people, the way that you introduce the building, the way in which you reveal the different facilities that we have here and what people can actually experience inside and outside the hotel whilst they're here. But I suppose in my role, it's a bit more direct than that. I produce content for our social media channels, for our in-house newspaper, for our website, for press and marketing purposes. I produce those stories through photos, through words, through variety of media.
I just have to interrupt you there, Will, because it looks as if our food has arrived. What do we have?
All right, here you have our French onion soup. It's a classical soup. It's with onions, white wine, and chicken stock. It's au gratin with some croutons and a Gruyere cheese.
Thank you very much, sir. One of the curious things, Will, I've seen about the hotel is that you have your own newspaper or magazine. So are you responsible for that?
Yeah, it's part of my role here. My colleague, my boss, Petter Gjerde, he had this dream to produce a newspaper for the hotel when he's the sales and marketing manager and has been involved in the project since Odd Rayton bought it, and has been working for 2 years in the development of the hotel before he reopened. And he travelled the world taking inspiration from other 5-star luxury hotels, and it was something he'd seen somewhere along the way, which just really brought a little bit extra to his experience when he was in that hotel. And I've been working with newspapers and magazines for many years, and that's how we knew each other before. So he brought me on board with one of the roles to produce this newspaper, which is called The Collector. It's about 16 pages long. It's in a sort of broadsheet format, a bit of an old-fashioned style, but we produced it in collaboration with our design agency, Anti, and in the words of Anti, we call it a modern classic. So we're taking what we like from the classical feeling of a newspaper, but we've upgraded it, brought it into the modern era, better quality paper, and no ink that's going to rub off on your fingers. It's not daily. I mean, we're a quarterly publication, stories about the hotel's history, about the region, about some of the people who are involved, either employees or suppliers. I even travelled to London to interview this 250-year-old pharmacy who provides some of the toiletries for our rooms. It shouldn't be restricted to looking at ourselves. This is content marketing in the modern sense, really. We want to tell stories which represent our philosophy, so it doesn't matter whether you pick it up on a train in Hama or a ferry in Hong Kong. doesn't matter whether you're going to be in the hotel or not. There should be stories within there which you find interesting, regardless of whether you're looking to book Britannia or not.
So this isn't just something that a guest will find in their room or you can pick up here at the hotel. The distribution will be wider?
Well, no, I just make that. I've used that line before, but it doesn't really make any sense. I like to think that our guests, being international, will take it back with them to those trains in Hama and ferries in Hong Kong. We're not actually actively sending it out, although the potential is there. So if it was just a marketing leaflet about the hotel, as someone who's worked in different industries around, I might be a little bit resistant to you coming in and putting in your flyers. But people like our suppliers or restaurants that we name within the magazine, or the tourism agencies in town, they're interested in receiving it, because we're not only promoting Britannia, we're promoting the region. We're passionate about where we live, about Norway, about Trondheim, and we want people to visit, and that's what should come through in newspaper and our content.
Last time we spoke, Will, you were working elsewhere in Trondheim. So what persuaded you to shift industries and start working here at the Britannia?
We are part of the Rayton group, and I was taking photos. This is only part of the reason, but it's definitely one that comes to mind. I was taking photos at a conference, and Odd Rayton, the owner of the hotel, and the founder of Rayton Gruppen, was doing a presentation on stage and had this video of his supermarket chain winning many awards, and like this big award ceremonies with like glitter waterfalls from the ceiling and grown men in their suits hugging and crying, being so proud to win these different awards, like best shop of the year. I don't know, I can't remember what the awards were, but there was such camaraderie between them, and they were so passionate about their work. And I was there on my own, as I always was, like taking photos in that little black area between the crowd and the people on stage, in that kind of no man's land that freelancers so frequently occupy. And I'd already been in discussion with my new boss here at Britannia about potential collaboration. And at that point, I just craved that idea of being part of a team, building something together, and maybe winning stuff, maybe achieving stuff together, and feeling part of a team. And so that was definitely the inspiration to pursue it. And then just the quality and opportunity speaks for itself, I think, thereafter.
Now, the Britannia is essentially Trondheim's newest hotel. We've been open, a matter of weeks now, but it's also Trondheim's oldest hotel, or certainly one of the oldest. Can you tell us a little bit about the Britannia's history and why it was so important for Odd and his team to bring the Britannia back to Trondheim with this kind of modern twist?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's certainly more authoritative voices in town about the history of Trondheim and Britannia than myself. But the great privilege that we have here is that we get to work with so many of them, either people who we work with here or people that we have brought in to write content for the newspaper, the website, to produce history stories about Britannia. And like you say, it's just a wealth of stories and roles that this place has played over the period. Before this hotel was closed down for renovation and purchased by Odd, it said that it was established in 1897, but actually it was established in 1870. So that's when the first family bought the farmstead that was here and turned it into a hotel to accommodate all these travelling British aristocracy who would travel for weeks to fish the great salmon rivers of Trøndelag, some of the best salmon fishing in the world. And they would travel by a series of, I think they called it the postal service. So they would take horses and carriages up the country, staying in various stables and coaching inns on the way. And then when they got here, they had experienced this incredible fishing, but there was nowhere to stay. So they realised there was this great need for better quality accommodation. The hotel has been this house of influence for a century and a half, with different movers and shakers and VIPs from all over the world, everything from Queen Elizabeth II to presidents to Jay-Z have stayed here and influenced Trondheim, the hotel, and the people who live here and work here, and including, I suppose, Odd Rayton, the new owner, who, as a 14-year-old boy, had a dream to buy this hotel one day and become its director or its owner or its manager. And he actually realised this dream a few years ago when he had the opportunity to buy it. And he bought it originally in conjunction with a hotel group. But when they realised the scale of Odd's dream, what he wanted to achieve with this place, rather than just kind of bring it up to speed and open the doors again, they actually backed out and allowed him to take over 100%, which means that we're now a family-run hotel. Which means that he and the team that he's built have been able to really put their stamp on what we do. But that stamp comes from his desire to bring back all the things he loved about the hotel when he was younger. So that kind of grandeur, the status in town, and the role that it used to play. It's always been this kind of, we call it in Norwegian, Trondheim Storstue, the living room, the living space of Trondheim. So it should be a place to celebrate great achievement, big engagements, events, notable moments, balls and so on. But it should also be a kind of everyman place, an everyday place, an opportunity to come in here and have a little oasis of luxury in an otherwise hectic life.
Well, Will, while you've been explaining the Britannia's history and a little bit about Trøndelag to our listeners, I've been enjoying and finishing a lovely French onion soup here in the brasserie, and one of the people responsible for that has just sat down to join us. Espen, the executive head chef, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Now, so many questions for a head chef in an establishment like this. But first of all, what persuaded you to join the team here at the Britannia?
It's the opportunity to work with so many skillful craftsmen as you have here. I think that was the biggest motivation for me.
Can you explain a little bit about the food philosophy here? What is it you're trying to offer guests?
We're trying to offer unique experiences, and we're trying to build our menus upon the seasons. So it's a seasonal menu that should change at least 5 times per year. And we try to use as much local ingredients with international influence as we can.
The menu here in the brasserie looks interesting, but there are 5 other restaurants here in the hotel as well, or 5 other dining concepts. What are the dishes which have been most popular since the reopening?
It's different dishes and different concepts, but I think one of the biggest successes by now is the afternoon tea that we serve in the Palm Court every Saturday. Last weekend now we had over 300 pre-booked, so it was a lot of food going out.
So with the history of the British aristocracy coming to Trøndelag and so on, I assume that kind of feeds into this concept of afternoon tea, which anyone who's from the UK will certainly know about. But is there any twist that you put on afternoon tea? So, for instance, is there any brown cheese served with the sandwiches? Or
we use, instead of the clotted cream, we use sour cream from Røros, which is very traditional Norwegian. We use local products like the smoked salmon from Vega. It's fantastic. Fresh cheese from Grindal, and so on. So we have our own twists on it, but no brown cheese yet. Might be.
Excellent. Espen, one more question for you. What's the dish in any of these restaurants here at the Britannia that you're most proud of sending out to a guest?
That's a tricky question. Not quite sure. I think our local meat is fantastic. That we have a special agreement with Røros meat. So everything from the côte de bœuf in the brasserie to the steaks at Jonathan is from Røros. So I think it might be the beef that we are most proud of.
Lovely. Well, I look forward to returning one day to test out that theory. Espen, thanks so much for the little chat.
Thank you so much, and enjoy your food.
You've used the word luxury a few times, and it's fair to say that you get that impression walking into the lobby and into the restaurants here. This is a really fabulous place that's unlike anywhere else in Trondheim, really. But I think a lot of my listeners will, when they think of Norway, when they think of visiting Norway, they think of, hiking or roughing it in a tent or something. Norway's not necessarily a country associated with luxury travel as much as, let's say, France or Italy or the Middle East or even China to a certain extent these days. So can you tell us a little bit about the luxury travel market in Norway? Because although the reputation isn't there, there is certainly a market for this.
Well, that's our ambition, is not only to recognise that market, but to create one here in the middle of Norway. And we have actually been accepted, even before we opened, as a member of the Leading Hotels of the World network. And this is a group of 400 exclusive hotels around the world, which have to meet a very rigorous 800 criteria benchmark in order to be accepted. And we achieved that before we'd even opened because of the scale of our ambition. And they visited and checked that what we're doing. And we are only the 5th hotel in the Nordics to be accepted to that network, and only the 2nd in Norway and the 1st outside of Oslo. Yes, you're right. There's not a kind of culture of 5-star luxury travel in this part of the world. And in fact, we don't even have a 5-star rating system, any star rating system in Norway, which is why it was so important for us to be part of that network, because it is a kind of stamp of approval. And many people have said to us before we opened, 5-star will never work in Trondheim. There's no market for it. But we want to prove that there is, because people do have money and they do want to experience, the nicer things in life. And so we want to create a slightly different level, a slightly different experience that makes us stand out from the crowd.
So with a new kind of traveller coming to Trondheim and staying here at the Britannia, what experiences can you offer, or perhaps not offer directly here, but point them towards in Trondheim, here in the city, or in the wider Trøndelag region here in central Norway?
Well, the great thing about Britannia and working here, and I've worked with different groups which have been associated either with the city, the municipality of the city, or the Trondheimsregionen, which is like the city in the surrounding areas, or Midt-Norge, which is like the whole part of Norway, and so on and so on. There's typical Norwegian bureaucracy that you break it into different segments. But Britannia, we're not really restrained by that. So if we want to send someone whale watching Lofoten, or salmon fishing in the Trøndelag rivers, or skiing in Sweden, we're not restricted by the fact that that's in different municipalities or different countries even. We're quite close to Sweden here. And so I love that opportunity just to be able to recommend things because it's the best, because it's a world unique place to go. And I think that's what's great about Britannia. And we have a concierge team who put together packages for people and organise trips. We've just launched a kind of exclusive fishing package, so people can come stay in the hotel and then travel out to one of these rivers to salmon fish, to fly fish an exclusive stretch of river. And maybe they could have a bit of glamping out there. Maybe they could have lunch provided for them out there. Maybe they can stay in an authentic, rustic Norwegian cabin with its own history, and then come back and have the nice hot bath experience at the end of that trip here in town.
A lot of international visitors will, when they think of Norway, it's the fjords and it's the northern lights, the mountains of the north that they think about when it comes to that once in a lifetime experience. What do you think? I mean, you've hinted at it a little there, but why should someone consider this part of Norway, central Norway, over and above the fjord region or the north?
Apart from the things that we really stand out for, like the fishing, which I've come back to a couple of times, I think what's really fantastic about this region right now is the food. Like, as you and your listeners will no doubt have discussed before, we've got 2 restaurants which have just recently been awarded the first 2 Michelin stars in Norway outside of Oslo and Stavanger, which I think's incredible achievement. And the quality of the food, which is just been on the up and up and up ever since I moved here 10 years ago, not just because of these incredible restaurants, but the producers who are making world-class food from the mountains, the farms, and not least the sea. The best scallops you can imagine anywhere in the world. This meat that the head chef's speaking about, the beef from Rhodos, and the quality of the vegetables that gets these long, light evenings to mature. I just think it's incredible. And I would come just for the food.
I think it's fair to say, Will, I mean, me and you have known each other for, 4 or 5 years, something like that. You've always spoken to me about the food here in central Norway, and I think it's finally coming into its own with the Michelin star awards. I think are the kind of icing on the cake. Where do you think the future lies with is food tourism a thing that can drive this kind of luxury travel experience that you want to create here in central Norway?
Yeah, for sure. And it's not all about the stars. I get a little bit tired of that, in fact, because it's a great ambition, but it's not the be all and end all. And in fact, some of the experiences which I think are so unique here are the opportunities to get that kind of farm to table experience, to be out in nature and do things you just can't do anywhere else in the world. Take the scallops, for example. They're particularly good here because the cold water temperature means that they mature much slower, so they get a lot more taste in. My wife's cousin, who up until recently has run a very successful restaurant in the north part of the county, said that he never ever serves a scallop which is over 4 hours old. So that is a real kind of farm to table experience. And my wife, she eats them while she's free diving, so she'll eat them underwater. And I think stuff like that, not all of us want to get underwater in Norway, let's be honest, but still to be around that kind of culture and that nature and to have that taste on your doorstep is something which can't really be replicated in many places around the world.
You say that it's about more than just the stars, and of course that's true, but I think it's an open secret that the Britannia would very much like to have a Michelin star of its own in the years to come.
Well, yeah, I don't think the head chef there, Christopher Davidson's made any qualms about that. He's got an ambition. He's a Bocuse silver medalist at one of the most prestigious cooking competitions in the world. He's also a world champion chef, and this is his first signature restaurant. And he just has an incredible story of how he came from a kind of broken home to achieve what he's achieved. And the quality of his food so far has knocked the critics' socks off. So, if you've got an ambition and you want to talk about it, that's great. And I've not even had the opportunity to eat there yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. We've got a long waiting list. People are all anxious to try it out. And I think it's a good ambition to have. I think we've all got to have those goals. So.
When it comes to food, I think it's fair to say that it's just as an important element here at the Britannia than the hotel. I mean, you go on the homepage and you have the 2 buttons there, and notice this morning: book a room and book a table. Yeah. And that's fairly unusual, I think, for a hotel website. So whilst international guests are probably looking at the Britannia thinking, yeah, I'd like to stay there, what the opening of the Britannia has done for Trondheim is essentially created a whole series of new restaurants, new eating options for local people. So can you tell us a little bit about the options that people here in Trondheim now have for a special meal out?
Well, we mentioned a lot about luxury travel, about restaurants with Michelin ambitions, but also this is a place for everybody. I mean, we're sat in the brasserie now, which is meant to be our kind of lively corner of the hotel with charming classic French dishes for every man and every woman. It's a much more affordable price point. We're not talking big prices here. We would like this place to be used. Actually, that's one of the biggest challenges with a hotel like this, is making sure people are aware that they can use the hotel, that these concepts, these bars and the Palmerhaven aren't just for hotel guests. We're open to everybody, and it might be that you'd like to book a luxurious buffet private dining experience in Palmerhaven for a confirmation or a wedding, but maybe you just want to come in for a drink in the bar, or you want to come in for a croissant and a cortada in the brasserie. But there's such a variety of opportunities and ways in which people can use the hotel. It's both our advantage and our challenge. I'm really focused on making sure people are aware of that, and of course get the feedback, make sure that we're doing what the people of Trondheim want us to do. People here are really, really forgiving because they want us to succeed. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we continue to develop and play that role as Trondheim's living room, Trondheim's Storstue.
Well, this has been a really interesting experience. Thank you very much for the soup. Before I go, last time we were on the show, I asked you 3 questions about life in Norway, and I'm going to ask you those again. It'd be interesting to see if they're still the same. So, quick answers, please. What's the best thing about living in Norway?
What I love about living in Norway is how beautifully sized Trondheim is, and how on a perfect day it's just the perfect city. Perfect size, lovely long white evenings, not too hot, just great quality of life. And if you can cycle along a fjord to your work and do a great job and then cycle back again in the evening to a lovely little wooden house on the waterside, I think that's a good reason as any to live in anywhere. I mean,
Okay, and what is the most challenging or frustrating thing about living here in Norway?
what did I say last time? Well, funnily enough, and this isn't Norway's fault, but one of the things that bugs me, as we're both effectively expats living out here, being away from your family, I think is a challenge. But that's not really Norway's fault, and it's not too far to travel anyway. So I could mention that there's not really much of like, how can you say this, a pub culture. So we have great options in the middle of the town, but I'd love there to be more of that kind of community spirit in the suburbs, like a pub, somewhere to go and meet your neighbours. We make our own in the summer, but in winter there's not much going on that front, so sort it out, Norway.
And a final question. Caveat for this one, though, is that you're not allowed to say the Britannia Hotel in Trondheim. What's your favourite place in Norway?
Oh, I reckon this one will be the same as last time, because I'm a big fan of like water sports and activities, and I like to go surfing. But having 2 small children, I hardly ever get to go to the destinations where I really want to go, like Lofoten, for example. It's just too far to get away. So I like to travel to the Atlantic Highway near Molde, where there's some surf breaks and lovely mountains and nice cabins you can stay in and have a really authentic Norwegian experience. It's only a few hours out of town, so that's one of my favourite places to go within easy reach.
Well, that was great. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find out more about the Britannia?
Well, I think the best resource is our website, Britannia.no, and there's an English side and a Norwegian side. It's packed full of stories and information about the different restaurant concepts. So yeah, check us out on Britannia.no.
Well, thanks for joining us, and I look forward to you being the first guest that comes on the show for the 3rd time.
Hat trick, yes. I'm looking forward to that.